Hello one and all! This is my complete timeline video for Soma Spider, so what? And before I begin, there are two things I do want to make very clear. First off, I am basing this off of the light novel, not the web novel. I know there are a lot of really important details that only appear in the web novel, but given how much change from one to the other, I can't really say they are still canon. And secondly, I'm going to try very, very hard to sum up this entire insane, wild story as quickly and clearly as possible, so as a result, a lot of really interesting characters and story beats are going to end up getting skipped. Sorry about that, but let's get started. Now, our story begins several thousand years ago when the god-killing angel Sariel decided for whatever reason to settle down on a small, unimportant planet and devote her nearly endless life to protecting the humans who live there. This was, more than a bit awkward for the dragons who also lived there and viewed themselves, quite appropriately as the dominant species, and viewed humans as, little more than vermin that weren't worth the effort of exterminating. But, the dragons were also gods, and they figured, hey, we have a very, very long time to win her over to convince her to join our side. Huzzah! However, things got more than a bit complicated when a human stole one of the dragon's young, and Black was sent to ensure its safe return, as he was one of the few dragons gifted at spatial magic. But, Black... yeah, he was unfortunately really young and really dumb, and decided to start a fight with some completely unrelated humans while on his mission, leading to Sariel stepping up and effortlessly kicking his butt, and that also somehow led to him falling in love with her. Oh god, Black, you are such a masochist, and I love you. Oh, anyway, though, the kidnapped dragon, he was fine. And as for the kidnapper, well, to absolutely nobody's surprise, that was a young Potamus, a man so absolutely and overwhelmingly terrified of death that he was willing to risk the anger of the gods just for a clue, a single tiny clue on how he could obtain immortality. And, he certainly got that. He used the samples he took from the dragon, as well as his own DNA, to create chimeras, including all the ancient dragon chiefs, the first hero, and most importantly, Ariel. Yes, Ariel is in fact the daughter of Potamus, though she was certainly never treated as a daughter. Her body constantly produced venom that she was in fact not immune to, leaving her sick, helpless, and unloved for her entire life, until one day she was saved by the goddess Sariel, who granted her a name, albeit accidentally. Yeah, Ariel was trying to repeat her name like, Ariel. And Sariel's like, hey, that's a nice name. And Ariel's like, alright, I'm gonna go with it. Huzzah! Anyway, though, shortly after this, Potamus became a wanted criminal for his, crazy long list of crimes against both man and nature itself. But he managed to earn shelter in several nations by publicizing his theory on MA energy, a seemingly limitless source of power that could revolutionize the entire planet. Of course, Potamus knew the energy wasn't in fact limitless, and was actually the very lifeblood of the planet itself, and therefore using it up would not only kill the planet, but every single person on it. Though for Potamus it was worth it, for the incredibly, overwhelmingly slim possibility that somebody, somehow, would find a way to obtain immortality using MA energy, but it never happened, and honestly, it probably wasn't ever possible in the first place. I mean, Potamus was literally the smartest person in the entire world, and if he couldn't figure it out, nobody could figure it out. Instead, though, the closest Potamus came was the discovery that injecting a human being with a ridiculous amount of MA energy could evolve them into a new species of being, one with a longer lifespan and higher base stats, a species that would later be dubbed demons by Justking, as they were literally killing the planet to get stronger. Oh, and as for elves, they're just, the next step in that line of evolution. But Potamus, he kept that secret for himself. And, all the people he kidnapped, brainwashed, enslaved, and did other horrible, horrible things to. Yay! Anyway, though, at this point, things got really freaking awkward for Sariel, because as it turns out, she kept her whole, god identity a secret from most of the population, and said they just thought she was the leader of this massive worldwide charity. So nobody really listened when she said, hey, using MA energy will kill all of you. Though I guess in their defense, they didn't listen to the dragons either, so I guess the lesson is humanity just really, really sucks. Anyway, though, regardless, Sariel ended up leaving her own charity to focus on raising the chimeras in the orphanage. But after a few years, the dragons, had enough, and they decided to wipe out all of humanity in order to save the planet. Smart dragons, I support them here. Unfortunately, though, Sariel just had to freaking stop them. She just had to be a goddamn saint. And to make matters just so much worse, before the dragons got their butts kicked and fled the planet, they sucked out every last drop of MA energy they could, meaning the planet went from having a few years left to live to having a few days left to live. Oh no! And that's where Justin, the future pontiff of the Word of God religion and the current leader of the largest surviving nation, came in. He struck a deal with Podemus to sacrifice Sariel to save the world. Yeah, to sacrifice the goddess who just saved all of them for their own selfish butts after they, literally just tried to kill the planet. A decision that he would never truly regret, as it was his only real option, but he still spent the next several thousand years trying to atone for it by protecting humanity regardless of the cost. But anyway, though, to absolutely nobody's surprise, this deal was a trap. Podemus' plan wasn't to save the world. Instead, he wanted to steal Sariel's power for himself, as he thought it might turn him into a god. Yeah, Podemus sucks. Podemus really, really sucks. Thankfully, though, Black doesn't suck. Well, for the most part. Regardless, though, he had a plan. He went and begged the evil god D, an entity equal to the Dragon King god, for help, and she agreed. In exchange for turning his planet into her plaything, she created the system that governs skills and monsters for two main purposes: collecting energy and creating gods. Basically, the system was designed to get people to fight, because fighting caused souls to generate energy, and upon their deaths, that energy would go back into the planet until the planet itself was saved. Huzzah! Though D's real goal here, besides, entertainment, was to see if individuals could go beyond the system and evolve into gods. With her having a lot of hope in both Podemus and Ariel, she really thought they both had a pretty good chance to become gods. But, it just never happened for whatever reason. Regardless, though, the system actually used Sariel as its core and would not free her until the planet had been saved, leading Ariel and her siblings to devote their entire lives to setting her free. But despite their best efforts, and a brief attempt by a vampire army to exterminate all of humanity, Sariel just could not be saved, because once again, Podemus freaking sucks. Now, Black very, very badly wanted to kill him, but D forbid it because it'd make the game less interesting, so instead Black could only threaten him, and this did keep him, mostly quiet over the eons, but he never stopped building massive killer robots, each of which sucked up a ridiculous amount of MA energy, meaning the planet would never be saved as long as Podemus was still alive. Regardless, though, despite the sci-fi army expanding by the day, things did eventually settle down. Humans and demons fought endlessly, and Dee just got bored. So she left. She started up a new life in another world under the alias Hiro Wakaba. She was a quiet girl, she never spoke up, but everyone was overwhelmingly captivated by her beauty and worshipped her. Except for Faye, who ended up pranking her endlessly, trying to get the tiniest bit of reaction out of her, but she never did, because Dee was quite literally above her and her petty feelings. Meanwhile, back in the other world, the system started to break down. As it turns out, constant reincarnation is really bad for the soul, especially when skills and stats are stuck on, torn off over and over again each time they die. And as a result, the population was on the verge of soul collapse, which would cause true and complete death, without any chance of reincarnating ever again. So Black tried to intervene, asking the current hero and demon lord to declare a temporary truce, and like everything in Black's life, it ended in complete and utter disaster. Because as it turns out, Potamus really sucks and had already contacted both of them and convinced them that Black was the bad guy, so they tried to kill him. And normally they'd stand no chance. Yeah, Black's pretty weak for a god, but he is still a freaking god! Unfortunately though, being God was the problem here, because as it turns out, the Hero and Demon Lord title come with a special secret perk that boosts their strengths to match their opponent when facing certain enemies, like for example, gods! This was likely put in place to protect the world from invasions by foreign gods, but it still worked on Black, and in the few moments before the power vaporized them, the Hero and Demon Lord were the equivalent of gods, sucking the planet almost completely dry and firing all of it directly at Black. Thankfully though, Sariel stepped in and saved the day. Somehow. She redirected the attack to hit D to end the system and save humanity, though unsurprisingly this did absolutely nothing to her, as she is a crazy strong god. But still, the attack did kill the entire class. So sad. And yeah, D could have very, very easily survived all of them, but it was way more fun for her to instead give them all OP powers and stick them in the system. There was, however, one little problem. Her co-workers in the underworld would notice a missing soul, and she needed to correct for that, or they'd find her and drag her back to hell. So she took Miss Oka's pet spider and just kind of infused it with a bunch of her memories and power, not a lot, just enough to fool the Soul Society, and thus White was born. Huzzah! Yes, as the title of the series explains, White truly is a spider. So what? And White definitely wasn't Dee's best work, and overall, she was a pretty rushed product, but that was fine since Dee just planned for her to die almost immediately, but she didn't. She kept escaping death by a hair's breadth time and time again, and Dee was impressed. So much so that she even bestowed White the OP skill Wisdom, a skill that, she just kind of made up on the spot without too much thought to balance, as it basically made White the most powerful mage in the entire world. So powerful that Elder Ronant, humanity's strongest mage, fell to his knees in worship of her when he first saw her cast magic, though he'd already burned down her nest, so his entire party, other than him and Buramis the summoner, were wiped out. Oh well. Anyway though, then White killed the Earth Dragon Araba, started a fight with her mother by eating her soul, and finally escaped the Great Elvo Labyrinth, where she'd been born and raised. But that's when Grandma Ariel showed up. And despite what we saw in the anime, Ariel actually tried asking quite nicely for White to stop attacking Mother, but unfortunately there was a language barrier which kept them from understanding each other, and Ariel decided the best course of action was just to blow her up. Fortunately though, by this point White had evolved into an immortal spider variant and could only be killed by abyss magic. Neat! Anyway though, then White ends up saving Sophia, a former classmate of Dee's who'd been reborn as the daughter of Cairn County's lord, and his beautiful wife who the butler Mira was madly in love with. And after that, White was briefly worshipped as the goddess's divine beast, and spent some time healing the sick and injured, eventually being recognized by the system as a saint. Good for her! And then, she killed her mother and aided Cairn County in a war by killing thousands of people, so huzzah! Very saint-like. Unfortunately though, then Grandma showed up in the middle of the war, kicked her butt, and destroyed her with abyss magic, which should have been the only thing that could actually kill her, but White was one step ahead and managed to transfer her soul into a recently laid egg, making her even more mortal and, as best as Ariel could tell, completely unkillable. Huzzah! But while this is happening, Cairn County was attacked by the human army and the elves, and Sophia's parents were killed. So sad. Oh, and by the way, Sophia was made a vampire by Dee, and Sophia turned her butler Mira into a vampire to save them both from the elves, but it wasn't enough. Thankfully, White swoops in and saves the day, but it still wasn't enough. Thankfully, Ariel swoops in and saves the day, and that was enough. Huzzah! And Ariel is quite a bit different now that she's absorbed part of White's soul, more bubbly and upbeat and happy, and she decides to enter into a strange truce with White, since neither of them can kill the other, and together they decide to travel with Sophia and Mira to the Demon Kingdom, where Ariel now rules as the new Demon Lord. Oh, and also, White's parallel minds briefly try to wipe out all of humanity, but doesn't go very far. Though importantly, Elder Ronan ends up living with the spider commune for a few months and becomes much stronger and more sadistic as a result. So, good for him. Anyway, though, then White decides to train Sophia like a Pokemon and makes realistic skin bodies for all the puppet spiders. And things are pretty peaceful for a while until they stumble upon a planet-killing doomsday weapon that Potamus designed and sold almost as a joke back in his human days, thinking that nobody would be crazy enough to actually try and build it. But they did, so he, White, and Ariel boarded and saved the world. But Potamus obviously betrays them, and White stabs him in the butt in a truly heartwarming moment of bonding between White, her grandmother, and her great-grandfather, which leads Potamus to swear undying vengeance against her. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, though, then for reasons known not even to herself, White ends up eating the planet-destroying bomb before it goes off, absorbs most of its energy, and becomes a god, fulfilling Dee's original plans for the system and royally taking off Potamus. Huzzah! Unfortunately, though, this means she's no longer supported by the system, and she spends the next few years trapped in a weak, sickly, albino human body, unable to tap into her god powers, which is especially unfortunate since Team Demon Lord needs to cross an impassable snowy mountain to reach the Demon Kingdom, and to make matters worse, there's a crazed Oni in them there hills. Wrath, another former classmate, who was originally reborn as a goblin with unique skill weapon creation, which he used to arm his fellow goblins so they could better defend themselves and procure more food. Unfortunately, humans, including the summoner Buramus, found out about his skill, enslaved him, and forced him to eat his own sister. And this, understandably drove him completely and utterly insane, so he killed his captors and literally anybody else he came across, as the wrath skill drove him completely and utterly insane and rotted away his mind. But despite a run-in with Wrath and an avalanche of monkeys, Team Demon Lord still safely crossed the mountains and made it to the demon capital, where Commander Balto had been ruling in Ariel's stead. And Balto fully understood just how insanely broken Ariel was, and the demonkind had no choice but to follow her, or she'd kill every last one of them herself. Unfortunately, though, his brother Blow did not understand this, leading to a lot of headbutting, and things only got worse when Blow spotted White and instantly fell in love with her, leading to him spending the next few years trying and failing to woo her. Thankfully, though, his attempts to woo her did end up saving White's life and maybe, the entire freaking world, as at one point he gifted White with some crazy strong alcohol, and getting drunk for whatever reason always makes White go bubbly and honest and talkative, and now that she's a god, getting drunk somehow led her discovering how to tap into her god powers just in time for a rematch with Wrath, that White easily won by teleporting him about a mile upwards and then just waiting for him to crash back into the ground, which he somehow survived. But at that point he managed to regain his sanity and devote his life to making amends for everyone he killed by serving Ariel and saving the world. Huzzah! Meanwhile, White's new god powers also let her go back to Japan, where she encounters Dee and finally acknowledges that she's not actually Hiro Wakaba, something she's been dreading for a very long time, but she handles it surprisingly well, accepting herself who she is, though the bigger issue right now is the strange attraction and repulsion that she feels towards Dee, wanting to be kept as a pet but at the same time wanting to escape her. And escaping is easier said than done when you're facing off against what could be the strongest god in the multiverse. But anyway, though, before she can worry about escaping, she first needs to find a way to save Ariel's world, and that is a whole lot easier now that she is a god, as she can now create mini-me's. They're so adorable. These are little spider clones that share her senses and can go anywhere, making White the greatest spy master in the entire world, which is very helpful since there is an armed uprising being plotted against Ariel by 5 of her commanders and Potamus, but White manages to get the drop on them before they're ready. Huzzah! Though this does lead to an encounter between Wrath and Miss Oka, their former teacher, who reincarnated as an elf because Dee sucks, and Miss Oka has been helping Potamus gather up the classmates to protect them, though unbeknownst to her, Potamus is planning on eating their souls in hopes that it'll make him a god. It won't, but regardless, Miss Oka is convinced that she's on the right side and is disgusted by Wrath's killing spree, even though she herself killed a bunch of demons in that battle. So yeah, the conversation goes nowhere. Miss Oka escapes. White then punches Potamus, drops a meteor on his head, wins the war, and blackmails Agner, the commander actually behind the rebellion. She then has Mira wipe out an entire border tribe so that Miss Oka can escape demon territory. Otherwise, Potamus would have eaten her soul remotely with his skill and taken over her body. Though the border tribe was also home to 2 more classmates that White wanted to save by getting them away from the border before the war started, so she had Mira slaughter their entire tribe in front of them for their benefit, though they obviously didn't know that and end up swearing undying vengeance against him. Well, Kuniko does. Asuka's kind of cool, just living in peace, but doesn't want to get left behind, so she follows Kuniko on his quest for vengeance. Anyway, though, from there, White plots a massive war because saving the world requires a lot of strong people to die and feed the system. Though White doesn't actually care about saving the planet and is only interested in saving Sariel, and she's only doing that for Ariel's sake. And she doesn't actually tell anyone that her plan will actually kill most of the population and will probably destroy their souls. Huzzah! Regardless, though, then the great human-demon war takes place, and millions die, and it is mostly a draw. Humanity lost their hero, but Ariel lost 3 commanders, and White failed to remove the hero title from the system. So instead the title is passed to Shun, the little brother of Julius, the former hero, and another classmate who was reborn as a prince. He's also joined by Faye, a popular girl reborn as a pet dragon, and Kati, his best friend, who's been reborn as a girl, and the daughter of a duke. Very impressive. And then we have Hugo, another classmate, who refuses to acknowledge this world is real, so he decides to kill Shun, as he's proof that the world isn't just Hugo's dream, since there's no way there'd be somebody stronger than himself in his own dream. Yeah, Hugo is just next level crazy, and his plan fails. Mizoka races his skills, and he swears undying vengeance against her and Shun, at which point Sophia and White recruit/brainwash him to join their side. They also recruit Shun's sister Sue, who happened to just, see them when she went to kill Hugo, but they don't brainwash her. She follows them out of an obsession to get her brother all to herself on a deserted island where she plans to drug and, yeah, she's also crazy, but regardless, Shun is now the hero, and that's a big problem for White, because the hero title ensures the hero will never lose to the Demon Lord, and thus needs to be kept very, very far away from Ariel. So White overthrows his entire kingdom, and has Sue kill her own father to keep Shun distracted, and also partially because Potamus was already controlling the entire kingdom, but regardless, Shun is literally powered by plot armor, so he still finds his way to the elf village, while White and Ariel are leading an army against it. Oh no! But anyway though, from there, White destroys several thousand killer robots, as she and Potamus just each keep pulling out their own trump cards for a full freaking volume, while Ariel sacrifices part of her soul to destroy Potamus' best robot, his greatest creation, and then kills him with abyss magic, ensuring that even his soul be torn to oblivion. Yay! Anyway though, then White explains things to her former classmates, or I suppose these former classmates. White doesn't tell them that she's not the real hero Wakaba, because honestly, that would just confuse them and would take way too long. But regardless, even with all he's learned, Shun is still against her and Wrath's genocide of the entire elven population, because he is a typical isekai protagonist, and he thinks murder is wrong. What an idiot, am I right? Anyway though, regardless, then D decides to get involved, triggering the world quest, and telling everyone on the planet the truth about the system, and White's plans to kill most of them, leading to a fight between White and Black to decide the fate of the world. This fight turns out to be pretty much pointless, as D was planning on killing half the population either way, so Shun, his classmates, Ariel, Dustin, and a few others, teleport themselves to D, and end up fighting against her for a chance to save the world without any sacrifices. And despite their best efforts and some insanely overpowered attacks, they are absolutely and completely outclassed until White shows up and stabs D in the face a bunch of times, at which point she surrenders and saves the world. Huzzah! White is then forced to say a very quick goodbye to Ariel before being teleported away to serve as Dee's pet, who shall train up to be a super powerful god slash Pokemon, leading another god to ask what exactly White is, to which he responds, Soma Spider, so what? Oh, I love that line. And as for everyone else, I mean, most of the epilogues are insanely vague. Wrath and Hugo just up and disappeared. Elder Ronan figured out a way to cast magic without the system. Miss Oka started a new village for half and quarter elves who survived the genocide, only to be despised by humanity, even though they were all in the dark about what Podemus was actually doing. And then Sophia, Mira, Sir Wald, the Puppet Spiders, and Ice Dragon Nia end up retiring to a frozen castle beyond humanity's reach. And Ariel spent her remaining days with Sariel. Good for them. And that is the entire story wrapped up as quickly as I could tell it. Very sad I missed out on some great characters like Best Girl Thelmina, but I've done a video on literally every volume of the series, so go check them out if you're interested. And until next time, peace!